Iran has already seen protests in many of its cities over rising food prices, unemployment that's widespread. These new sanctions could be a tipping point for Iran's economy. That's the idea. So I wanted to know, what is likely to happen next? Could we see any sort of renegotiation between the U.S. and Iran? I asked Thomas Mattair. He's Executive Director of the Middle East Policy Council. Thomas, a lot of our allies and trading partners, especially in Europe, are seemingly distressed at these new sanctions and how they might impinge on their activities in or with Iran. What do you make of their reaction?
Well, in the first place, they think Iran has complied with the nuclear agreement. And the International Atomic Energy Agency has reported periodically that Iran is in compliance. So they don't see the purpose, they don't see a justification.
So let's say they forge ahead, and we're hearing some European governments saying, no, if you have a factory there, if you're doing business there, you should stay there, because they feel like, as you said, maybe this is unjustified. Let's say they take that stand. They could be dying on that hill economically, though.
Well, yes, the EU has recommended that its private companies continue doing business, but they are going to seek exemptions from the U.S. for that activity, and I doubt very much that they will get those exemptions. And they've spoken about issuing their own waivers to those companies, and I doubt that that will stop us from applying our extraterritorial law and penalizing those companies. And many European companies are not even listening to the EU and their governments because they know the history of how they have been penalized by the US for violating sanctions in the past.
I wonder if that's part of the strategy of the U.S. government that's never articulated, which is that we're going to make this a little unpredictable, that if you're BMW putting a factory here, we want to make it to where you or others in the future don't trust us enough not to change our word, that you stop doing business here.
Yes, I mean, I think if a European company, based on the historical record and the behavior of the Trump administration, has to be concerned about being fined or being deprived of business in the United States if it continues with its business in Iran. And its business in the United States is undoubtedly much greater than it is in Iran.
In Iran, I'm wondering how this plays. Do you think this new round of sanctions and deterring these other nations from working with them could bring it to its knees economically again?
Oh, undoubtedly, these sanctions will hurt the people of Iran more than the government.
Okay.
And I think the rationale of the administration is to cause enough pain for the people to continue protesting in the streets and pressuring the government and hoping that the government will either change its behavior, not just in the nuclear programs, but in its behavior throughout the region, which does cost money that could be spent at home on the people. The government, and particularly the Revolutionary Guard, have already taken control of the most important sectors of the economy, can still profit while sanctions are imposed, have done so in the past, and in fact, hardliners, including Revolutionary Guard, are arguing that Iran should withdraw from the deal rather than continue to respect its terms.
The U.S. government says it does not want regime change. If you're trying to twist the arm of the government and also cause some economic pain within the citizenry, I wonder, what is the end goal here?
I think the administration would be delighted with regime change, but it might not think that the prospects of it are very high or in the near term. So what they're articulating is a desire for behavioral change.
Do you foresee a new round of negotiations happening in the next year or two?
No.
If new negotiations aren't happening,
if companies are pulling out of the country, if citizens are unhappy, they might be looking for a source of strength. What could that be? A nuclear program. We've seen that work somewhat in North Korea. So in the end, we don't know how this is going to play out.
Yes, I mean, they could look at North Korea and say they've been treated with more respect because they already have nuclear weapons. If we already had them, we would be in a stronger position. But any violation of the agreement on their part, any resumption of enrichment to levels that could lead to a nuclear weapon would be detected.
Mm-hmm.
And would probably provoke reaction from the United States.
The future of Iran is very much a question mark at this point, not to mention the question of U.S. and Iran, and U.S. and our European allies and trading partners who at this point are not happy about what we're doing with sanctions.